Welcome to Zero BS Estate Agency. I'm John Savage and I'm here to cut through the fluff and get to the heart of what really matters in property sales. As a straight talking industry veteran, I bring you raw, unfiltered conversations with top agents, brokers and property experts. In each episode, I strip away the hype and jargon, offering you honest, practical insights into the world of estate agency. Whether you are a homeowner looking to sell, a property investor seeking an edge, or an agent aiming to sharpen your skills, you'll find valuable BS-free advice here. I tackle the tough questions head on. What really maximises a property's value? How can you spot an honest agent? What strategies actually work in today's market? My guests share their hard-earned wisdom and real-world experiences, giving you the inside track on the property industry. Join me as I debunk myths, challenge conventional wisdom, and explore what truly drives success in estate agency. I'm not here to sugarcoat or sell you dreams. I'm here to give you the unvarnished truth about buying, selling, and succeeding in the property market. Subscribe now to Zero BS Estate Agency and arm yourself with the knowledge that could make a real difference to your property transactions. New episodes every week. It's time to cut through the noise and get to what really matters when it comes to selling property. Today, I'm joined by two industry powerhouses who are shaking up the world of estate agency. First, we have Alex Howard-Jones, the operating principal at Keller Williams Oxygen in Maidenhead. With over 2 decades of experience in property, Alex has been instrumental in pioneering the self-employed agent model in the UK. Her expertise spans residential sales, lettings and property management. Alongside Alex, we have Tanya Blake, pretty much the managing director of Oxygen in Maidenhead. Tanya brings a wealth of knowledge from her 15-year career in estate agency. She's known for her innovative approach to training and developing high-performing agents and her passion for transforming the industry's reputation. Both Alex and Tanya are at the forefront of revolutionising the UK property market, championing a model that prioritises agent empowerment and client satisfaction. They're here to share their insights on what truly maximises a home's value and how to navigate the ever-changing landscape of estate agency.
So Tanya and Alex, what is the one thing that truly maximises the value of someone's home when they go to sell their property?
Shall I take this one, Tanya?
Go for it, Alex.
All right. So this sounds a little bit conceited, but we're very good at Keller at working out what the one thing is. So the one thing is the agent that you use to sell your house. It's that simple.
Okay. So what is it about the agent that is going to maximise the value of someone's home?
Skill, honesty, integrity, knowledge. There's
proactivity, local knowledge, negotiation skills, people handling skills, access to the right tools. You know, a good agent should have an arsenal of marketing prospects to show their clients.
Yeah, so what you're saying is, right, there's not just one thing, there is the full package. And oftentimes, tell me if I'm wrong, but are you saying that package comes from pain-associated learning where things may have not gone right in the past? So they're not doing... So, for example, the reason I say that is because how can an agent be an expert yet only have a 97.5 valuation accuracy rate for the similar properties that they're selling in their local area? Why is their valuation accuracy rate not 100%? So why are they still getting the value of property wrong, which is causing the seller no end of hardship and aggro because their property is just remaining stagnant on the market for a month, 2 months, 3 months? It's like, surely, but if the agent really knew what they were doing and they were expert, like you just said, if they were skilled, like you just said, and if they did understand negotiation, then they understand consumer psychology. So if they had all of those things, what you're saying is it's the whole package.
I think a lot of the time, if an agent is honest and clear and gives really good advice to the client doesn't always listen, and the client will have their own idea of what the value of that property is. And as long as that agent has got a clear strategy around how they've priced it, and also we've got to remember pricing isn't a science. A lot of the time, there's a lot of gut instinct that comes into that, and experience and local knowledge that comes into that, because it's not a science. When you launch a property, you don't necessarily know how it's going to go until it's live. Okay. But I do think sometimes the client doesn't listen to the honest advice. And I think some of that comes out of the historic estate agents don't have the best reputation and haven't always been honest and have had that integrity. And I think that is part of the reason that I personally wanted to set this up, is to change the way that is viewed, and that clients therefore will be more willing to listen and take that advice.
So I think I remember I sold 2 flats, literally 2 top floor flats right next to each other. So number 27, number 29, and one sold for 345. The other one was exactly the same period in time. Well, why is the other one now worth 360 if the other one sold for 345, right? That being said, I got absolutely lambasted by people on a TikTok video that I did where I said that I achieved £80,000 more than the next 3 agents that valued this property. And so, of course, I was accused of, basically I'm the reason why property prices are the way that they are. And it's like, no, mate, it's understanding, to your point, Tanya, the nuances of the area. So what is actually happening in the area at that time? So, yes, I had 2 properties, both at 345. It was clearly obvious for that period, 345 was the right money because that's where the buyers, all of them were coming in at, right? Weren't going any further than that. But the other one was a 3-bedroom house, absolutely stunning. And the other agents valued it at 450 grand, but 1,000 yards up the road, with the weight of buyers coming through Notting Hill, Victoria, Holland Park, all that sort of way, but wanted to be in a Victorian house, not going on the other side of the North Cirque. They were selling in around Kensal Rise, Kensal Green for another 125 to 150,000 pound more than what this buyer purchased at £80,000 more. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Those all come into it. But how does the seller know what honesty looks like? Because I've been accused so many times of not knowing my market, trying to undersell it to one of my developer mates, trying to make a quick buck. All of those I've been accused of doing, when all I'm thinking to myself, no, I'm just trying to be honest. How does a seller know?
I think you've got to back up with evidence. You've got to have done your research and you've got to be able to back up your numbers. And if a good agent has done their research and they are able to sit in front of the client, provide the comparables, provide the evidence, talk through the reasoning as to why the agent feels that this is the right price, then the honesty becomes clear. The evidence is plain for all to see. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Alex, what are your thoughts on always go for the second sale?
As in, be the second agent in?
As in, you're the seller, I'm approaching you, but my intention is to win your business first time, but I'm going for the second sale. And so effectively what I'm doing is just that I'm being completely straight, completely honest, doing exactly what Tanya's done, backing my valuation up with evidence of what is actually happening in the area, not just showing brochures that look really nice and say nice fuzzy stuff about it, but I'm actually going for the second sale. Yeah, then that's right. But I'm going for the second sale. What are your thoughts if an agent, one of your agents, was like, no, I'm going for the second sale, actually. I'm not worried about the first time round because, do you know what? When this comes back to market, I'm hoping my honesty actually gets me it. And if I win it first time, then I sell it for maximum money first time.
I think we'd all be lying if we said that we didn't sometimes go into a valuation with a client and sit on the sofa and think, the client's expectations are a little wild here. I don't know who has been sort of blowing them up, but if I win this business and if I go with their price, I probably don't have a hope in hell of selling it. And then you have to decide whether you're going to be brutally honest and tell them that and bow out, or if you're going to do the dance and do what the client asks you to do the first time and really throw everything at it to try and get them the maximum price. But I'm afraid I'm more on the brutally honest side.
Yeah. And
it's a balance, isn't it?
Yeah.
Between that honesty and integrity, but also wanting to do the best for your client, because our job is to get the best price we can for that client out of that asset.
Mm.
And it's finding that balance. And I think as long as you're honest with your client and you actually tell them the truth, no matter what happens, even if you come in second, it's always going to pay off. And I've seen it time and time again. It pays off.
Yeah.
And even if you put a strategy in place and say, okay, for 2 weeks, we'll launch at the price you want. But if by this date it hasn't happened, are we agreed here and now we will adjust this price to what it should be in order for us to achieve? Because it might be then you get multiple offers. You just don't know. But as long as you have that strategy and you've been honest, I think that's the key.
Because there's what I've often found, and tell me if you think this is different based on your experience, right? But what I've often found is that negotiators that are going out to do the viewings end up working for the buyers, because I've seen it loads where somebody's come back from a valuation and they've gone, right, lovely, I've got the flat on for 450,000. And I've been a negotiator and thought, what is the point embarrassing myself in front of any of the buyers I've got? Because these buyers are more knowledgeable about the band of property they're looking at, because they're seeing more property than I am, more one beds than I am. Yet when I've come back into the office and I've gone, right, I've got a flat on for 400 grand, before I've even finished my sentence, my negotiators are on the phone getting their buyers out quicker than you can say. And they're like adamant, no, you need to leave work. Go and tell your boss you need to leave work, because if you don't, by tomorrow, this flat's gone. Simple as that. Have you ever come across an experience like that?
I think the traditional way of agency lends itself to that ilk of behavior, shall we say. Unfortunately, in the more traditional way, I mean, there's some very good high street agents, but in that environment, the negotiators aren't necessarily rewarded in the right way to motivate them to achieve the best price for the client.
Yeah. And
it's just another deal. It's very transactional. Whereas I think doing it our way, the agent is super, super motivated to achieve the best price they can get for their client.
Yeah.
So I think the difference there being it's how that negotiator views the client, the relationship they have with that client, and 9 times out of 10, there is no relationship, going back to it being very transactional. Whereas in the self-employed industry, you have much more of a relationship formed and you want to achieve the best price because that directly impacts you.
And there's also, seeing the journey unfold before it unfolds and seeing all of those punches coming. And if you're a self-employed agent, there's no like receptionist. There's no negotiator to hide behind. You may be able to get away with hiding behind not answering emails and telephone calls for a little bit, but ultimately it is your reputation is at stake as a self-employed agent, right? So you
Can I interject here? Sorry.
Yeah.
You've because you've obviously mentioned negotiators perhaps seemingly working for the buyer. And I think that this is a really interesting point on the subject of your podcast, which is that one of the ways that the agent will maximize the value of the property for their client is to build a relationship with the buyer. You have to work with the buyer. You have to gain their trust. You have to create a relationship where they feel comfortable negotiating with you. That's how you're going to get your client the best price for their house. It's part of it. So it's a fine balance. And I hear reports of agents literally standing in people's houses saying, if you offer X for this, I think we can get it agreed. Obviously, conduct any viewing as if you are on record.
Yeah,
because you might be.
Yeah, and I see that. Well, I was watching location yesterday, right, and it wound me up a treat because there is a misconception created by that program where Phil Spence said something on the lines of, it's on for 509 grand. And I'm sure this fella's a nice guy. I've never met him. It's on for 509 grand, but they're super motivated to sell it. So I reckon the agent tells me maybe 493 should do it. And I'm like, oh man, that irritates me beyond belief, because no, do not put figures into the buyer's head. And going back to your point, Alex, is building a relationship with the buyers, absolutely. And that's being honest and truthful with the buyers too. And so there have been times where, you know, like my favorite question, I don't know if you ever heard this story before, but I think I may have mentioned it. Claire and Ben, when they was like, are you going to come and show us this property or what? And I was like, well, if you don't tell me what's attracted you to this property, no, I'm not. And they were like, well, you better, and because a massive lack of disrespect. But at the end of that viewing, after me saying, listen, I will show you this flat, but only to prove a point that it's not for you, after I qualified them, they come out, they're like, oh my God. So exactly, Alex, when the negotiator or the self-employed agent or the sales manager in an office has a very good relationship with the buyer, that absolutely helps the purchasing process, and that buyer is completely trusting the agent in actually, when the agent says it's 509 grand, I don't know what the other buyers are going to do, but you need to put your best foot forward. And you know that 509 is the right money. The buyer don't muck about, because they are very knowledgeable. So why try to pull the wool over their eyes? Or why do what Phil Spence did, was just say, I think if you just offer this. No, mate. No. It don't work like that.
No. But by the way, you will bump into these buyers in your local Waitrose.
Yeah.
Month after month after month for the rest of your life, because they've moved to your area, and you want them to use you.
But you also want to sell that house 10 years on.
Exactly.
You know. But if you go back to the Phil Spencer example you used in location, he's almost acting as a buying agent.
But just doesn't say it. I wish he would say it, because if he is saying it, then fair enough.
Exactly. So he is almost acting as a buying agent, because he's searching properties for his buyers. So he's on the other side of the coin. So he is trying to get the best price for the buyer, not necessarily the seller.
Yeah.
And there's a big gap there. And I also believe every single deal that you do to be a successful agent must be a win-win for all parties. And I believe that very strongly, because reputationally for you as an agent, if you have done a deal that is a win-win for both parties, your seller's going to think you're the best thing since sliced bread, and so is your buyer. There's two opportunities there for referrals, which is key in our industry. You've given a fantastic service, and you've got two parties that are super happy with the job you've done. That, to me, is a win-win all round.
And by the way, even if that means the buyer's paid more than asking price.
Yes.
Even if they secured what they want. And the most skilled agents will be able to create a relationship with a seller and a relationship with a buyer that is so good that you can meet with your seller and your buyer, and they can have a fantastic relationship, which pushes the sale through swimmingly.
Oh, do you know what's really interesting about that is that I always say at viewings, at the first viewing, I always want the seller to be in the house. And a lot of sellers go, I don't particularly like that, right? I don't particularly like that. But the reason I do it is because I understand, as an estate agent, I'm in a negative reputation industry where I'm distrusted before I say a word, and I'm disliked before I walk through a single front door. And so when the buyers are asking me questions about the property before they go and see it, they're quite excited. They've been qualified really well. They think it's a really nice experience. I've answered all their questions. You're guaranteed that every single time I've done that and the seller's been at home, that buyer has asked the seller in front of me the exact same questions they asked me day or 2 days before. And then the seller says, that gives the exact same answers, because it was a seller that told me in the beginning, right, of what they've just asked. And that immediately builds trust. And because they've now met each other, you know what it's like where you've not met someone and the seller wants X and the buyer only wants to pay this. And now the buyer feels really pissed because the seller won't come down. They just think they're being greedy. But yet if they had have met each other, They put a face to a name. And then I totally agree with you, Alex. That is absolutely golden. And also, when you are going down the actual through the transaction, once sales has been agreed, the sales offers have been agreed, and we're now going down through the transaction, and something always comes up, which is a big curveball or an obstacle no one saw. As an agent, you want to be able to say to the seller, "Listen, mate, I love you, but you're being a little bit unreasonable for X, Y, and Z reason," but you can have that conversation versus if I go in there and I just tell the seller what they want to hear in terms of price, I'm not able to achieve that price because buyers aren't stupid. Then when I do get them an offer, the seller feels jilted. They feel like they've lost 35 grand when they hadn't, because it was never worth 35 grand more than in the first place. And now when I'm asking the seller to do something because I'm saying you're being a little bit unreasonable, they're going, "Well, you lost me 35 grand, mate. I'm not being unreasonable at all." And that then causes a whole new set of issues. And then it suddenly falls out of bed. Everybody spent money on surveys and solicitors' fees. The seller's lost out on their onward purchase, and it just collapses.
Yeah.
I'm glad you touched on solicitors, because love solicitors, no shade. My mum is one, but the way that they write, because it's so legal, when they send their inquiries to and fro, and your seller receives a bunch of inquiries from the buyer's solicitor, they think the buyer is being really abrupt and rude and ratifying, and it puts their backs up. And you have to remind them, this is legal speak. This is the solicitors talking to each other. This isn't the buyer disrespecting you. If they know each other and they've locked eyes before that point, they're going to take it much more calmly.
Yeah, and because a lot of agents are viewed as a barrier to a good sale. So if the buyers and the sellers have actually met each other, and then there's no one's hiding anything. Do you know what I mean? There's absolutely not. But I want to ask you guys, right? We've literally, 20 minutes has almost passed since we pressed record. And I've been dying to ask you this question because I've actually been to your premises in Maidenhead. I've seen the way you guys operate. I've met up with the agents that you got working with you. I love them, the front end. I love what you guys do in the back end, right? As an entity, as an establishment. Obviously, I know Ian Cooper as well, down in South London. What do you want to get out of this podcast?
I think we have a passion that we want to change this industry. And I think there's a lot of talk out there about self-employed models, and I want people to see that, like, Alex and I are real people with a lot of experience in the industry, and I want them to see that it's real and there is a good way of doing business and that everybody's going to win. And I think we need to get that across, that it's real, it's very human, it's honest, there's integrity involved, and our agents behave in the same way. And I'm the first person, if there's an agent that does not behave in that way in our market center, I don't want them to be part of it. It's super simple, because I'm a great believer in a bad apple spreads. And I want everybody to work in the same way. They should care, they should have honesty, they should have integrity, and they should be skilled.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's how we're going to change the whole industry.
Yeah, but you also, when you're saying skilled, that brings me on to another question as well. You take training very seriously, I've noticed, because I've seen it.
Yeah, very seriously. I believe if you have the skills, you can achieve anything. Anything.
Yeah, totally.
As one of our agents, Chris Young, said only yesterday on the WhatsApp group, learners are earners.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to get you guys on this podcast as well, right? Because I know exactly, this may not be your slogan, of course, but always do what's right, even if it hurts. And that's certainly the way you guys come across. And I think it's so important when people are getting into the self-employed world to actually find themselves in a way in which they're not thinking, oh my God, I've just jumped into beds with some sharks. What have I done? Do you know what I mean? Whereas I know, obviously I know you guys, but I know Paul Childs, for example. I know the other guys within the Keller Williams office in South London, all very good, experienced agents that all have something to share, which is so valuable to their colleagues. it's unreal. So definitely wanted to get your insights on this podcast. Guys, you've been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for sharing your thoughts.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having us.
And that wraps up another episode of Zero BS Estate Agency. I want to thank Alex and Tanya for their candid insights and for sharing their wealth of experience with us today. Their commitment to honesty, integrity and innovation in the property industry is truly refreshing. Remember, whether you're buying, selling or working in property, knowledge is power. Keep questioning, keep learning and always strive for transparency in your dealings. If you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast. Your feedback helps more people find us and join our no-nonsense community. Don't forget to subscribe and never miss another episode. We'll be back next week for more straight-talking, BS-free property talk. Until then, I'm John Savage, reminding you to always cut through the noise and focus on what really matters in estate agency. Take care, and we'll catch you on the next episode.